What are we waiting for?
We scoping the place out, man. We ain't gonna just run up in there. That's how you get shot.
Say that again. You wow. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely
Man, you
not.
don't know nothing about no war.
Everybody knows war. Yeah. What it is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Good God, you all.
It ain't you all, it's y'all.
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 Man, you sound like a karate movie. Y'all.
Y'all.
Say it from right here with some soul. Y'all.
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 Let me show your goofy ass how to do this. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Come on.
All right, welcome to Rush Hour. My name is Dan. How's it going? Nikki's unfortunately on vacation, but we have Spartan Mike here with me tonight. Mike, how's it going tonight?
Dude, it's going all right, man.
Thanks for covering for Nikki.
Yeah, absolutely. We're back, brother. We've done this plenty of times. Obviously, Nikki runs the show, but she's on vacation, rightfully so. We're here to bring some good talk tonight.
Right. So we're gonna be talking about the NFC West. So we're gonna have two guests on who are gonna respectively talk about the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks, and then we're going to be talking about the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals. So it's going to be a fun-packed show. We're excited to talk fantasy gambling and the upcoming season with these two guys. We're going to bring them in. So we're going to bring in Baden, who is a communications major from Arizona State.
What's going on, everyone?
How's it going? He's a Seattle Seahawks fan. How's it going tonight? And then
I'm doing good.
Great.
Ready to talk some football.
Can't wait. Thank you for coming on. And we're also going to bring in Alex right now as well, he's the Rams fan who what is his handle right now? He's the LA Rams fan club of NY. Alex, how's it going tonight?
It's going great. Part of a robust group here in New York City.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. We might as well start it. So with the Rams, like, how did that club start? When did it start? Was it from when they were in St. Louis and you guys just converted, or like how did that start?
Right. It's a great question. You know, you may not be able to tell, but I'm old enough to remember when the Rams were in LA the first time around. You know what I mean?
Right. And I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Right. Thanks a lot. So when the Rams officially moved back to LA, I had a couple buddies, former SoCal guys, some other guys here in the city that were like, hey, you know what? We should start getting together and watching the Rams. And you have to remember, back in the day, the Rams weren't always on TV. Right. So we'd have to go somewhere to watch the game because, you know, unless you had an NFL ticket, you weren't really going to get to watch the game. So we got some guys together and, you know, where few are gathered, we started having a good time watching the games here in Midtown, and we've been doing it for a while. So it's been fun.
That's awesome.
So like, how did you particularly become a Rams fan before we go in depth with everything else?
Okay. Full disclosure. I was born in the Inland Empire of Southern California.
Okay, makes a lot more sense now.
A town right outside of LA called Riverside, which is really not right outside of LA, but you know, we claim LA sports as our thing. So yeah, I grew up watching you know, anyone from, you know, Jim Maverick, Eric Dickerson, you know, and then when they moved to St. Louis, you kind of had to follow them because there wasn't really a team in LA to really cheer for. You know, the Raiders moved, and you know, if you're a Rams fan, you really can't be a Raiders fan. That just doesn't really go. And so stayed a Rams fan all through their St. Louis years. And when they moved back to LA, might have been one of the only 3 times I've ever cried.
Really? So like in a
good way. In a good way.
Yeah, that's right. Sure. That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Okay. So Baden, tell us a little bit about yourself and like how did you become a Seahawks fan and all that other fun stuff, and tell us a little bit about yourself so everybody, our audience, knows about you.
Yeah, so I strictly became a Seahawks fan because of my dad. He grew up, you know, he was in high school in the 80s, so he was watching like Steve Largent when he was growing up. I think that's how he liked Seattle, and then he ended up going to University of Washington for grad school. So he fell in love with Seattle even more. So he's always been linked to Seattle, but it's only for football. Or I'm New York for, the Yankees, Islanders, Nets. But other than that, we're just Seattle for football, and it's solely just because of him. I just followed in his footsteps.
No,
Hey, let me
yeah.
ask you something real quick, brother. I see that Washington helmet, but you go to Arizona State. That's got to be a little conflicting with some of your friends at Arizona State, no?
Yeah, so I was my parents came out. It happened to be a family weekend when I was there for the ASU Washington game, and I was there in my Washington stuff. I like school pride when they're not playing Washington. I'm a Washington fan before ASU. It's just how it is. I think I grew up rooting for Washington too much to ever turn on them now.
So how awkward was that tailgate then?
I mean, my friends aren't like diehard ASU fans. Of course, they like the school and they wanted ASU to win, but it was a shame when Washington lost. I guess if they're going to lose to anyone, it might as well be my school. There's some sort of like win in there for me, but yeah.
Right. So everything's going well with you, Mike?
Everything's going on with me, man. I mean,
Awesome.
I saw the Washington one. I get a little testy because I went to Michigan State and they roundhouses last year because of Penix, because of that Penix transfer, because he beat us when he was at Indiana. Now we got to deal with him again next year, man.
I'm excited for this year. He's right now, I think he's like the third best odds for Heisman or something. So, I mean, I'm excited for Washington.
Now he's 47 years old, and that's going to affect like how high he gets drafted. But
yeah, it's going to be like a Hendon Hooker kind of thing, I think.
Hendon Hooker.
Exactly.
So, all right, we're going to start off with the Seahawks draft because that was actually, honestly, out of everybody in the whole division, that was the most exciting because they had 2 first-round draft picks. Everybody else did not really have a first-round draft pick other than the Cardinals, but we'll get to them later with Mike. But, Baden, so let's take us through a couple of the picks. Obviously, you had the 5th pick and the 20th pick. Obviously, those were 2 huge draft picks. Even your second-round pick could be potentially a very good fantasy play in this upcoming season. So what do you think about the draft picks that the Seahawks had this season?
I mean, for starters, I think as good a talent as Witherspoon is, it wasn't like something that was ever talked about for the Seahawks. I mean, there were talks of, Richardson or a quarterback, and then Jalen Carter ended up falling all the way past them. But I mean, I'm happy with the pick. I think that he's a very different corner than Gonzalez, but I think you can make an argument that he's the best corner in the class. So getting him and then also getting Njigba, who was probably the best player available at the time at 20, and who some people had as their number 1 on their draft boards at the receiver position, is a great draft in the first round. And it's tough to complain with arguably the 2 best players at their position.
Absolutely. I know. Me and Mike are obviously Giant fans. We both wanted. I don't want to put words in Mike's mouth, but I definitely wanted him if some miracle he fell to you as well. Tell us about the running back that you guys picked up in the second round, Zach Charbonnet. It seems like that was another awesome pickup, especially on how well Seattle has run the ball. You have Kenneth Walker, and him in the backfield is going to be a very scary thought. What are your thoughts on that move in the second round?
Yeah, so I was a little bit surprised, but I mean, I know Pete Carroll loves his running backs. He uses them all different ways,
Right.
Special teams and in the backfield. And right now, with Penny gone, the only running backs they really have on the depth chart were DJ Dallas was their backup, and he's more of a special teamer, and then Kenneth Walker. So they definitely needed some depth, and I think he was good value there. I mean, I didn't expect it. I'm not sure where he would have went if he didn't get taken there. I don't know if they could have taken him later on, but he was a very good running back in college. I mean, he produced for UCLA, and he's going to be the maybe third down back in short yardage situations. He's a bigger guy than Kenneth Walker is. Okay. But it was interesting because then even later on, they took Kenny McIntosh from Georgia, so they doubled down on running backs in the draft. So it's a little bit I was kind of questioning the 2 running back picks, but I mean, Zach Charbonnet, I think, is a very good player, and I think he's going to be their short yardage back, and he's going to produce pretty well for the Seahawks and for fantasy, honestly.
Right. No, it's going to be a very interesting to see how they work out Cabernet and Kenneth Walker, like we just mentioned. It's going to be fun. It's going to be one of those things in August. We're going to be like, holy crap, who do we go with? Do we go with Kenneth Walker? We see what he did, or do we go with the unproven rookie that could possibly be more than a third down back? We'll see.
And real quick, remind me something. So, like, what was it about Walker that made them think, you know what, hey, we got to get another running back here?
I don't think it was anything with Walker. I think it was just they had such little depth. It was just Walker and DJ Dallas on the depth chart. So I guess they value a better running back than DJ Dallas as their backup. So making the move in the second round it was kind of surprising to me, as it was to a lot of people. But I don't think it's a concern with Kenneth Walker. I mean, the Seahawks have had a lot of trouble with having healthy running backs. Penny was always hurt. Chris Carson was hurt a lot. So they haven't had the best luck.
Didn't even Walker get hurt as well, right?
Yeah, Walker did get hurt.
Yeah. So they haven't had the best of luck with their running back staying healthy. So maybe it's just kind of, doubling down on the running back so that in case something happens to Walker, they have Charbonnet. But I don't think early in the year Charbonnet will get more than 8 to 10 carries. I think Walker is going to be the workhorse for the majority of the year, unless Charbonnet really shows something or Walker gets hurt.
Right. So all right, that's like everybody's excited with the Seahawks draft, obviously for obvious reasons. They're one of those organizations that every year you're like, all right, they'll do some funky things, but more times than not, they'll be like at the end of the draft or in the end of the offseason, you're just like, all right, they're going to be in the mix no matter what. And obviously what they did last year was huge as well. So,
and let me ask you something real quick. Were you surprised last year, or did you have a feeling that they were going to surprise people? Because, I mean, if I were a Seahawks fan and I watched Russell Wilson go to Denver in the offseason, I would have said it was probably a rebuild year. They came out and had a damn good year with Geno Smith at quarterback. I mean, what are your thoughts on it beforehand? What are your thoughts on it now?
Yeah, I mean, I think people even forget that going into the year, Geno had a great year, but he wasn't even a solidified starter. Him and Locke were still battling it out. So going into the year, they were rebuilding. They didn't have a set quarterback. And then they end up going 9-8 with some pretty quality wins. And I mean, the draft last year was a huge part in that, getting Tariq Woolen. He ended up being a phenomenal corner for them. Kenneth Walker and then Cross and Lucas are both tackles that they're going to keep for a while. But I mean, I was definitely surprised. Even the week 1 win was kind of a miracle for me. Just beating Russell Wilson and the Broncos in Seattle was pretty fun to watch. But I did not expect to be a playoff team. It's pretty cool when your rebuilding year is a wild card, but like clinching the wild card. So I can't complain with that.
Trust me, we understand.
We were in the same exact boat last year, so we know the feeling absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna go to talk about the Rams. So obviously the Rams won the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. I
was there. It was beautiful.
Oh, you were there? Okay.
Absolutely.
So we're definitely going to talk about that experience because I've never been to a Super Bowl. I don't think you guys have either, right?
I went to one.
Oh, okay. Which one did you go to?
Helmet catch.
Oh, all right. So
wow.
you all right. So I'll shut up then. Okay. So we'll get that going. So basically, synopsis of the Rams. They basically sold the farm to get to that one Super Bowl. Last year was a little of a okay, players got hurt. We could have still made a run if certain players didn't get hurt. Fine. At the end of the year, we were like, all right, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So basically, you guys didn't really have definitely didn't have a first round pick. But did you guys? Let's see.
We didn't have a lot of draft capital, if that's what you're trying to say, right? We did not, and they made some moves. They kind of moved some. Made some trades and trade down to get a couple more picks. I think our first pick was like
I have it right here. Yeah, 36 pick Steve Oliva from TCU,
That's
which
right.
me and Mike talked about if he was still there with the Giants.
Yeah,
we could have taken him.
Right.
So
no, listen. I mean, I feel like the Rams draft this year was about as vanilla as you could possibly get. I mean, historically, the Rams have sometimes done some goofy things, from even picking, Trung candidate when they didn't need him back in the day, to God bless him, Tutu Atwell, which, may have his moments here and there, but might have been a little bit of a reach when we picked him up. So I think the Rams just went kind of conservative and went a lot with like some replacement guys, right? We lost a lot of guys this year, and I think a lot of the guys that they drafted were hoping to be plug and play guys, because there's just not a lot of depth on this team. And if you're looking to get an NFL career going, signing with the Rams may actually be your best bet, because the roster right now is light.
Right. So yeah, like you mentioned before, there's so many question marks. Obviously, they traded Jalen Ramsey in the offseason. We unfortunately have the yearly. Is Aaron Donald going to retire? Is he not going to retire? Is is Stafford gonna be healthy this year, or was it just really a one-year wonder with him?
Right.
Obviously, McVay is an awesome coach. I love him. It's crazy to think that he's a year older than me. That he's the wonder.
It's crazy. Absolutely. What have you done with your life, right?
I say that all the time when
Yeah.
I see a Rams game. It actually is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And does Cooper Kupp come back healthy? Because obviously, once he got hurt, the wheels started to fall off offensively, and then Stafford was like, "All
Cooper
right."
Kupp has surprisingly been almost like an every other year guy.
Right.
Where
It's funny,
he
right?
gets hurt about every other year, and last year was his year. So I'm actually hoping this year he stays healthy. Stafford has largely been healthy. I think he might have been able to come back towards the end, possibly, but they were so out of it that there was no need to, put his, life in danger with that offensive line that we had last year. So, I think picking up this Avila guy with their first pick in the second round was the way to go. It's a safe pick, right? It's not necessarily the sexiest thing out there, but you need to protect the quarterback, and the Rams have proven that they need to protect the quarterback, and hopefully at some point create some lanes for Cam Akers and whoever's going to be running the ball for him.
Right, and that's the funny thing about fantasy. We'll talk fantasy a little bit with them.
Yeah.
It's like Cam Akers was in the doghouse the whole season, and it was just like, all right, I want to get traded. Oh, we're going to look for a trade. We're going to look for a trade. And then it never came to fruition. And then towards the end of the year, they finally used him. And he was finally the running back everybody that drafted him hoped he would be.
Bizarre.
So, very bizarre. Very, 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 very bizarre.
Can't really explain it. I know that, McVay, for being a brilliant guy, you sometimes don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, why they were trying to run Henderson at times when Cam was there, when Akers was there. But Akers did check out, and I think it really hurt the Rams in the middle of the season. By the time Akers came back, he did actually show some signs of life as far as being a pretty, serviceable running back, but it was a little too late. So,
right. So you mentioned Cooper Kupp before. I'm a big Cooper Kupp guy because I'm in a keeper fantasy league. I know no one really, this is a fantasy show, but I had him 2 years ago in a full PPR league, and he obviously won me my league. So I kept him last year, obviously, and then it burned me a little bit as well last year. So I felt your pain as a Rams fan because I
picked up Robinson. Let's not talk about that, but yeah.
Yeah. So I was an ipso facto Rams fan for the last 2 years as well, since my best player was on your team. So I felt your pain last year to a certain degree. Yeah. So, as you mentioned before, he's been an every other year guy and everything else like that. I haven't really followed up on his recovery this year, but do you think it's going to be all systems go by training camp?
I think he'll be ready. Jefferson should be ready as well. I mean, he's basically the only other, wide receiver on the team outside of maybe Ben Skoranek. And, they drafted a couple wide receivers. I'm sure there's going to be some guys off the street who are going to be competing again. Positions are open. So it's going to be very interesting how the team kind of rounds out this roster.
Right. So what's your expectations for this season? Since let's face it, this division is a very tough, top-heavy division because we obviously know the 49ers, and Baden, you can jump in as well on this question. We're going to obviously talk about the other two teams, but with the 4 teams in this division, like 2 years ago, 3 out of the 4 teams actually made the playoffs, and the 4th one literally just missed it by a half a game or a game, which in the Niners, because they got decimated. So I know it's a very yearly up and down division. Like, what's your optimism going into the season? I know everybody's going to be pegging the Niners to be the division champs, but how can you knock off the 49ers into making a division run if that's even possible?
I think that the question mark with the Niners is going to be who's going to be our quarterback.
Right? And that's obviously the biggest question, too.
Everyone, this is well documented. I feel like any one of us could probably play quarterback for the Niners and be somewhat successful. It's unbelievable that they had Mr. Irrelevant, step in and he's like their third quarterback on the roster, and he just blows up, right? So
Right.
they're doing something right there, but I'm hoping that kind of luck kind of runs out eventually. At some point, everyone's going to kind of catch up, hopefully, right? And really, you look at the Rams schedule. We're playing them early in the season. I'm actually happy we're playing them earlier in the season because they're hopefully going to still trying to be, figuring things out, right? And even though we'll be figuring things out, I think we'll be maybe ahead of schedule because the Rams still have a lot of leadership.
Right. See, that's the thing. Like people are going to be sleeping on the Rams, and then when it's towards the end of the season, the Rams are just right there for a wild card spot. People are like, oh, all right. Well, obviously, we have Cooper Kupp, Stafford, and Donald, like our friend Mark just wrote. So it's like you guys are in that weird limbo. Like, yes, if we make a couple moves or a couple guys pan out with the guys we already have, we could obviously make the playoffs. If not, it is what it is. It's another year.
I mean, if you're going to bet on the over, or the Rams won 5 games last season, we were in it in a lot of other games that things just didn't work out. Even the last game where we were hoping to send the Lions to the playoffs, we ended up losing to Baden Seahawks in overtime. There was a bad call. We're not going to talk about it, but still, I mean, these are the Rams were in it. They could have easily won at least 3 more games, but they just, the cards didn't fall their way, right? So I think this year, the season's in 2 halves, right? You look at the first half of the season, the last half. If we can get 4 wins before our bye week, I think we have a shot.
I think it's a pretty common theme in the NFC West that the teams are never bad for that long. I feel like teams like the Niners, Rams, and Seahawks they always find a way to kind of get back to their winning ways after maybe a down year or two.
So
things shake up very quickly in the NFC West. I feel like, right? I mean, the 49ers, right, in 2019, they go from being a Super Bowl. I mean, almost won the Super Bowl, right? Then the next 2 years, and they were kind of in limbo there.
Well, yeah, I think the injuries had a lot to do with it in 2020. If you remember, they were down to their 3rd-string quarterback as well, another year.
Sure.
And it was just like, oh, okay, well, that sucks because their team is so good, and you're like, all right, well,
talented.
Yeah, that's part of the reason. Sorry, that I think Purdy or anyone can kind of just step in like a game managing quarterback because they really don't have to do too much. They're not asked to, run an air raid offense. They have probably the best running back in the league. I mean, I know Giants fans might want to argue Saquon, which is reasonable, but I mean, you have a great defense: Kittle, Debo, Christian McCaffrey. So I mean, they didn't ask Purdy or even Garoppolo for that matter to do too much. So I think that with their current roster, like it's easier for a guy like Purdy to step in and keep them afloat, or even better than afloat with what he did.
Okay, since you
real
guys,
quick, it almost makes you wonder if they had a top 10 quarterback on that team, they'd be a really damaging franchise. I don't think they lose the NFC Championship game. I don't think they would lose the Super Bowl in that case.
Or is there a chance that they're even better with just like a slant drag route quarterback? Like maybe that's just what they're better with.
They still would have lost the NFC Championship game, just to let you know. But we don't know about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Eagles were on a different level last year. I think that was the perfect letdown spot for Purdy if he was able to stay in the whole game. I think
it was too much for him to handle.
Being in Philadelphia, NFC Championship game, the Eagles fans having basically all day to get ready to go. It wasn't a recipe of like Christian McCaffrey literally had to do everything in that game, and obviously, unfortunately,
he ended up at quarterback.
Right.
He did.
Yeah, so that game was insane. So
he's got to stay healthy too, though.
Yeah,
he does.
The Niners have a lot of injury history as well, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So Baden. So all right, the wild card was nice last year. You have Geno Smith as year 2 going on, but you have Lockett. You have JSN now, Smith and Jigba, and you have DK Metcalf and the running game, and then you have the second coming of the new Legion of Boom with the secondary that you guys have been building over the last couple years, and obviously building it up this year with the 1st-round pick. How are you going to be, if you were to win the division, how are the Seahawks going to win?
Like what's going to be their recipe this year?
Yeah, exactly. What's the recipe for this year?
I think, Geno kind of has to replicate what he did last year.
And that's going to be a big ask, but honestly,
Big ask.
he got paid like a lot of other quarterbacks this year, so he
Yeah.
has to do it.
If he doesn't turn the ball over and he gets the ball into the hands of someone like Njigba and DK, then I think that'll help them out offensively, especially with Walker. Their whole problem through the years has been their offensive line, and I like to think that it's kind of getting stronger with guys like Charles Cross, and they drafted a couple guys this year. They got a center from Michigan that I think might start right away, but if Geno doesn't turn the ball over, if Geno doesn't turn the ball over, the offense should be fine. I mean, they have DK, who's a big play, physical receiver, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's a guy that's going to be in the slot. And after his combine, he has elite, like the shuttle drill. He has elite, like close space route running. So that adds a different dynamic. And then defensively, if they can stop the run, which they haven't been able to do for the past 3 or 4 years, it seems they get beat up by the run constantly, then they should be fine. I mean, when you have Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, and then Woolen and now Witherspoon, like you said, hopefully it's another Legion of Boom. It's a tough ask, but I mean, hopefully you get some glimpses there. But I think this year offensively, it's just going to be Geno not turning the ball over and then the defense stopping the run, which is something they haven't been able to do.
Right. Okay. That seems very fair. So since we got through your teams, we're going to start with Mike, who's going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals, and then I'll talk about the Niners. And you guys obviously can jump in. What do you guys think about these other teams?
Jump in, man. I know you guys know your enemies better than we do, but
oh yeah.
So don't be shy.
The Arizona thing should be quick. I'm not worried.
Yeah. There's not much going on in Arizona right now besides those jerseys.
Yeah. So Mike, take us away. What you see? You are a big one, along with Truth is our big draft guy. What did you see with the Cardinals in the draft, and what realistically do you see it coming out of the 23 season? Obviously not a lot, but give us something.
If we start from the top, just with the draft right now, right? For a rebuilding team, they had actually a very, very good draft. They got Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. He's an excellent offensive tackle. Then you got B.J. Ojulari, which broke a lot of Giants fans' hearts because we were hoping that he would play with his brother in New York. However, he went in the second round to Arizona. He is a fantastic edge. Trust me, you are going to see him make an impact as he replaces Watt there. Then in the third round, they got Garrett Williams, who's a cornerback out of Syracuse. I know Syracuse is not traditionally a good program. They did have a good year this past year, and it did kind of come from their secondary, and Caleb led that. I will go as far as to say that they got 3 starters out of this draft. And last but not least, in terms of the draft, they got a quarterback in the 5th round who, look, I mean, he's a 5th-round quarterback, but a lot of fans are interested to see. He played at Houston. He was elevated by a great wide receiver. But, he is actually a very talented quarterback. And it'll be interesting to see that, in the event that, he has to get in there, maybe he'll cause a little bit of disruption if Kyler Murray goes down. So draft-wise, I actually think they did a phenomenal job. Now let's talk about the Arizona, like the state of the Cardinals and this upcoming season. The Cardinals have a brand new head coach, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles. It's interesting. You don't see defensive coordinators get promoted as the head coach very frequently anymore. Obviously, the Eagles had a good year last year, but they have a lot of talent. So we're going to see how that translates for this new coach. The over-under right now, and you can go on DraftKings and see what Vegas is how they're lining up teams and what they expect in terms of wins this year. The over-under for the Cardinals is 4.5 games. That's pretty terrible.
That has to be one of the lowest ones. So
it's one of the lowest ones, and it makes sense. They're coming off a very bad year. They did go 11-6 2 years ago. However, even then, they're a little short on talent. No pun intended, and insult the quarterback, Kyler Murray himself. But that is another struggle right there. They have a quarterback who, there's a lot of questions going around as to whether or not he's overpaid. I'd go as far as to say that he is. Now, granted, he's a franchise quarterback, fair enough, but it's very difficult to rebuild around a quarterback that's not consistently playing at that elite level. So Arizona's got a big uphill battle over the next few years here, although, again, these draft picks were pretty solid, and it'll be exciting to watch those guys as they progress throughout their career. But I do expect the Arizona Cardinals to finish in 4th place in the NFC West,
right.
And I don't even really see that being in competition unless somebody has a quarterback that gets hurt.
Right. Before we jump in, by the way, thanks for everybody watching Rush Hour tonight. We have our wonderful guests joining us talking about the NFC West. Be sure to like, subscribe, and all other things New York Giants Rush. We deeply appreciate it. Sorry, Mike. Keep on going. Just had to do some house cleaning. Thank you for everybody watching as well. We see all you guys in the chat right now. We appreciate it as always. All right, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was done. In fact, I was saying, because I know the Seahawks get to play in Phoenix, right? So, Brayton, you actually get to see them this year in Arizona, right? If the timing works out.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly when that game is. I'm not sure if it's going to be over my winter break. I don't remember exactly when they play, but if it is when I am in school, I will definitely be there.
Sounds good. And then again, the Rams play there once a year as well. The Giants play there in September. I wish that game was a little bit later for the sake that Phoenix is a little bit nicer later in the fall and beyond. But I will say this, for Giants fans, for Seahawks fans, and for Rams fans, what a great opportunity it is if you want to get away and travel there for a long weekend. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm about to do a little bit of travel.
It's actually the last game of the season, last regular game of the season. But for $44,
for who?
The Cardinals. Sorry, it's going to be Cardinals Seahawks. Yeah, last game of the year.
It's last week.
$44. So maybe you leave early for New Jersey early that week. So
I was going to say, your winter break might end the day after, right? So it might be worth going.
Yeah, and I'm sure if that happens, my dad might end up coming out as well. He might fly out with me.
Yeah. And listen, Cardinal fans aren't going to hurt anybody. I can guarantee you that.
Oh yeah, no. I went to the Cardinals Eagles game. A couple of my buddies at school are Eagles fans. So we went to that game, and there were more Eagles fans there than Cardinals fans. So I'm not
the place.
Yeah, so I'm not too worried about the Cardinals fans giving us a hard time.
No, I wouldn't worry about
that. Don't forget, fellas, the Rams are coming to New York.
Yeah, no, we were gonna get to that as well. That's on New Year's. That's on New Year's Day.
That's right.
So, all right. So the big question, Spartan, and you guys could chime in as well, Alex and Baden. The big thing in the room is D-Hop. What are they going to do with Hopkins? Is because obviously right now he seems to be one of the biggest question marks. Is he going to get traded, or are they going to basically keep him as their only main weapon? So, what do you guys think about D-Hop? And obviously, everybody has to prepare for him because he is their focal point in that offense. So, what really is your thoughts on D-Hop, guys? We could go one at a time.
I'd say he's one of the best wide receivers in the game who can't get the ball.
Right.
I mean, simple as that. And he had his moments again, even last season, when Kyler had his head straight and was able to get him the ball, but those moments were few and far between from what I saw, and so he doesn't intimidate me nearly as much as a Rams fan as long as Kyler's back there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about you, Baden?
I would agree with that. I'm not really too worried about it as a Seahawks fan, but in terms of his future there, I think people kind of made a lot of narratives about what he wanted to do. And I'm not sure exactly if he likes it there, but from a fantasy standpoint, I actually had him last year. I drafted him later on in the draft to kind of save him for after his suspension was up, and it worked out good for a couple of weeks where he had 30-something points, but he just didn't get the ball in some games and was pretty disappointing. So I mean, with the way their offense was last year, it was pretty clear that he wasn't getting the ball because they weren't really producing. So I mean, I think he'll be happy there if he gets the ball, because I don't think he expects them to win too much this year. Maybe he just wants to, kind of stat pad his career for a little bit.
Right. So obviously, like we mentioned before, Kyler's banged up. So it might be Colt McCoy. It might be the rookie that you guys draft. They drafted. We're not Cardinals.
June.
So it's really going to be the process of elimination of let's really see what happens with that sort of thing. And it's.
Hey, you never know that the Giants could be in play for Hopkins if things aren't, panning out for them halfway through the season.
Right. Well, yeah.
Financially, that would be a little bit challenging, right? Though, Dan. I mean, I tend to find that the Giants have done so much to address the wide receiver position. No guarantees with any of the players they've gotten. They don't have a guaranteed upgrade. But I think at this point, the Giants are going to go into the season kind of comfortable with what they have, and they don't just yet want to be giving up assets. Now, if there comes an event where, the Giants are exploding on all cylinders, right? The linebackers are set, the offensive line steps up, and we're really just down to wide receiver, I could totally imagine it happening.
Right.
All right.
Now
So
it's got to play out.
all right, so we'll finish we'll wrap up the Cardinals now with some fantasy talk. Other than D-Hop, who would you say would be a huge fantasy factor? I know this is a stretching very thin, but who would you say other than him? Maybe Connors. He's obviously a good running back, but he always gets hurt at some point. But we know he's going to get the ball and find a way to get to the end zone. Do you think anybody else, guys?
I mean, Rondell Moore had some promising.
Yeah, you did. That's
weeks
a
last
good one.
year. I don't know if he gets enough volume to be that productive, but I mean, he can get you some good weeks as a flex, I think, or as a wide receiver too, depending on how big the league is. So, other than him and Connor, I'm not really sure who would step up in like a productive way.
Listen, I got burned with Edmonds last year. I don't want to touch another Cardinal for ever. I mean, I guess it all depends on what Cardinal you're looking at and what round, right? But
yeah, like it seems like the Cardinals, everybody other than D-Hop is going to be late round flyers unless Connor finds a way to be healthy. He'll be a middle round guy as well, but everybody else will be like, all right, we need a wide receiver. Let's get him in a late round because the Cardinals have to throw the ball. Eventually, he's going to get targets. Type of thing. So
and that's what's going to happen. Someone's going to pick up a Cardinal with a late round flyer, and that's going to be a guy that ends up catching like 6 for 80 every week or something like that because they do have to throw it to somebody.
Right.
Tell you what, real quick, watch out for Trey McBride next year. He didn't really do anything last year, but
the tight end that was all right.
State, so I mean, he's a guy that could possibly step up and be a pretty strong offensive player for the team. And then, of course, look, Kyler Murray. I know we're bashing the guy, but boom or bust, right? I mean, if he does take off, I mean, he does produce a lot of fantasy points because he's a little bit versatile. So I wouldn't get him as your starting quarterback, but if you want a good backup, I'd go for him.
Mm-hmm.
He does love a good outlet, so that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So the last team, obviously, the class of the division, obviously, as of last year, they won it. They went all the way to the NFC Championship game. We already hinted to it, is the San Francisco 49ers. Draft-wise, they didn't have a draft pick until the third round. So they really didn't have much in the first two rounds. So the first pick they had was J.R.E. Brown from Penn State, who was a safety. I know you guys talked about him a little bit, Spartan, on the draft. I know he was a very fun, hard-hitting safety. Obviously, he fell in the third round, so he's far from perfect. But, yeah, I liked his name. Whenever the Giants were around that area, I would have mocked him a few times. So his name is definitely familiar, especially playing at Penn State. So that seems to be a big move for them because he could easily step in and start at safety with how solid that defense is. And then we can laugh at this, but I'm sure he's going to be a guy that's going to help them win a lot of games. They drafted Jake Moody in the third round at the 99th pick, who is the kicker from out of Michigan. And obviously, if you're taking a kicker in the third round,
and you don't have a lot of holes.
Yeah, so obviously you don't have a lot of holes. That's a big one. And this guy is going to be a long-term piece for your team, obviously, if you're investing in a third-round pick. So you've seen him a lot, Spartan. What do you think about them taking a kicker in the third round, being your big rival in Michigan?
Well, listen, as a Michigan State fan, I watched them last year. The Spartans had an abysmal defense last year. Against Michigan, they actually played pretty damn good. They did everything that we could have asked. The offense didn't do anything. Field goal kicker, he got 5 field goals for Michigan. So I think the final score was 29-7. And so obviously that was embarrassing, but you remember watching that game and just saying, man, he is a phenomenal kicker. There was another game that Michigan had this year where they played Illinois. It was a very strange call when they decided to kick a field goal with 2 minutes left. They were down by 5. They kick a field goal and had the guts to punt it back to to Illinois. Illinois does nothing, goes back to the kicker from Michigan. He gets another field goal, and that wraps up the game. there's 12 games a year for college football team in the regular season. Two of them desperately came down to the kicker. And listen, at the end of the day, you're going to need a lot of games and wins come down to a kicker, right? And for a team like San Francisco, you need that to possibly win an NFC Championship game. So I do think that they actually made a good decision in drafting him if they really truly feel like he is going to be the best field goal kicker in the league for several years to come now. I agree with that move.
Okay. And then it's a 7th round pick, but we're obviously a fantasy show. We're trying to be at least. Another Michigan man, Ronnie Bell, who has been all over the place. He was supposed to be the stud in Michigan. For whatever reason, it didn't pan out for him, but he was a good slot guy. Knowing the 49ers, they'll find a way to get him going, and he'll be a guy that we all have to like run to the waiver wire at some point in the next couple of years. And like, see, he broke out finally. He's going to be good to go. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with. We'll see what do you think about Ronnie Bell?
Well, I mean, I'll just say this real quick. You know, the Niners need something to complement Debo,
right,
in the wide receiver position.
Well, they have Ayuk.
Yeah.
They have Ayuk.
You know, fine, but I think they could upgrade in that one area. But they also have the luxury of being able to develop guys. Right? Because of the fact that, as Baden mentioned, they don't have a lot of holes. So you can draft these guys and watch them develop, and they'll probably, you know, this guy will probably take off like week 8.
Right. So what do you think about Ronnie Bell, Spartan? And Baden, if you know anything about him.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player. I mean, he had some outstanding games over the last couple of years, really, as well. So I think he's a good player, but again, he's a 7th round pick. So I mean, the question is there, how effective is he going to be in the NFL? But there's definitely boom and bust potential with that guy. So it'll be interesting to see, right? I would imagine his boom is a little bit higher than what Tutu Atwell was when he was drafted. And so, you know, you got to keep that in mind. There's always guys that you see. What's that?
A waste.
A waste, exactly. And we're Giants fans. We've had plenty of wastes as well. But yeah, for a 7th round pick, excellent upside. Truly wouldn't be surprised if he actually took off and played pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think last year who was their 3? Jawan Jennings, I think, was their 3rd receiver, and he got touches, especially later in the season when you know, Debo and Ayuk weren't playing as well. Maybe they're getting covered better. Jawan Jennings had a good amount of catches, so maybe Bell steps into his spot if he's a better talent. So I mean, I think there's definitely production available for Bell this upcoming year.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. So the funny thing, well, not a funny thing, obviously with the 49ers, fantasy wise, the whole offensive lineup is like, all right, we can get them here. We've all, if you played fantasy football in multiple leagues, I'm sure you've had a 49er or 2 or 3 in multiple leagues. Like obviously with Christian McCaffrey, who's going to ultimately be a top 1 or 2 or 3, definitely a top 5 draft pick. So we don't really need to expand on that. We all know he's unworldly, who's going to be catching and he's going to be running. And obviously with his weapons on catching the ball, it's really just going to be really, holy crap, we're going to get almost 30 to 40 points a week, especially if it's a PPR league. And then obviously you got Debo, who could run the ball. They kind of stayed away from that other than a couple of game plans here and there. He was a little banged up last year. I had him in fantasy, so he cost me a couple of games here and there, unfortunately. And then you have Ayuk, and then obviously Kittle, who's a top 3 tight end, give or take the rankings of whatever you play or whatever like that. It's like Kelsey and then him and then a few other guys every year. So, like, who obviously you don't like them because they're division guys, but against your particular team, who kills you the most that you're like, oh God, we have to face them again type of thing before going into the weekly matchup against them? Well, we'll start. One of you guys could take over.
I would probably McCaffrey. I mean,
right. That seems to be the obvious one. Yeah.
I think it was a Thursday night game last year against the Seahawks, and he was catching touchdowns, running for touchdowns. So I mean, it's tough to go him for anyone.
He threw for a touchdown against us.
Yeah, that's right. He went off on you guys. That was like the first week of like him coming out of his shell against as a Niner. So I was very happy about that.
That's what makes him so dangerous, especially, even in fantasy, is that they use him in so many different ways. Like they pitch it and he throws it, he runs it, he catches it. There's nothing that he can't do offensively. So, I mean, he always gives the Seahawks fits.
Right.
And then on the defensive side, Fred Warner always kills the Seahawks.
Right.
It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
we didn't even get to the defensive side. That's the scary thing about it as well. So, what about you, Alex? Who do you
I mean, McCaffrey, for all the reasons that we just talked about. I mean, he shows up in San Francisco and he's this second coming of all the Craig or whoever it was, in the Niner lore. I mean, this guy just tore it up. If I had to pick someone else, it's a healthy Kittle, right? Because a healthy Kittle is also really annoying because it looks like he's blocking, he's going out, and teams have a difficult time matching up with him because he has a great route tree and he gets open, right? And so a healthy Kittle can be very difficult.
For sure. So yeah, what do you guys think about Samuel and Ayuk? Might as well talk about them too. It's like they feed off each other, interchangeable weekly. I had Samuel last year, so it's kind of annoying. There's so many good weapons on this team that a player that you might have might suffer that week in fantasy. So if you had to pick between Samuel and Ayuk, who would you guys take? Like a hypothetical fantasy draft.
Well,
I mean, I think I would take Debo. I think he's more versatile when it just comes to football. And then fantasy wise, I think there's more. There's a higher chance of him touching the ball. I think he touches the ball more than Ayuk does. Right. And from a pure volume standpoint, that plays well in fantasy. I think Ayuk was a little bit of a boomer bust guy. He was either putting up 28 to 35 points or it was 6 points. So I mean, fantasy wise, the volume that Debo gets is much more consistent. So I would have to say Debo.
Yeah, I'm going Debo as well. I mean, I think the Niners try to get Debo the ball, right? And he's somebody who demands the ball, and he's a guy that you want to have the ball, right? If he's on your team. So I think the knock on Debo again, and I think this is true for a lot of guys now, but it's that health factor and the way the Niners use him not only as a wide receiver but out of the backfield. Having him run the ball as a running back. He's going to get a lot of wear and tear. So I'd be very curious to see how they decide to use him this year. Now that they have McCaffrey, maybe they don't have to run him as much. All
right. Yeah. No. Of course. So I'm with you on that. I think it's really just comes down to, can they stay healthy? What is the quarterback situation? Is it Trey Lance finally? Is it Purdy? I know they have Sam Darnold, so it's really who is going to break out for them, who's not going to make the biggest mistakes for them.
I hope it's Sam Darnold.
There you go. So,
but heck, they might even win 13 games with him back there.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
They might win 13 games with me.
Right.
That too.
The team is constructed.
That too.
Keep your phone on. Off silent mode.
So, all right. Before we wrap up, we'll let you guys tell us where you guys what you guys like to do. Any podcasts, any events, and how you came about of joining a club, Alex, and how big that club has become over X amount of years. So, Alex, we'll start with you with the LA Rams fan club of New York. How did that start? How did that generate people that just joined in? And when do you guys meet up and everything like that? Are we going to see you on New Year's Eve?
You'll definitely see us. So let's start there. You're definitely going to see us New Year's Eve. We took some guys to when the Rams visited about 3 years ago, when I think the Rams dropped 51.
Yeah, those games were terrible. Jared Goff owned us, and the Rams just
that was a
it might have been more so girly.
It was cold. It was wet. Yeah, a healthy girly, but it was beautiful to watch.
That was actually my honeymoon, so that was one of the rare games I didn't get to go to. So I was very grateful for that.
Yeah, you were hopefully having a better time than watching the Giants because
that was a rough.
You didn't tell me you didn't turn the TV on, did you, Dan?
I see. This is the thing. I watched the first quarter. We were in St. Lucia. We found a bar. Everybody's like, oh, they put the football games on. Thankfully, the Giant game was one of the games that they had on TV. Of course, I watched the first quarter, and then we had a couples massage. So I turned off my phone during that, obviously, and I turned it on, and it was like a Christmas tree. because this was 2017. So this
Right.
was when we were still quote unquote good, and then this year was just the season from hell.
It
that
was the jump start of the abysmal
Right.
abyss.
So this was like, all right, we're bad, but we're not bad yet. We shouldn't be this bad kind of thing. And that was the game like, holy crap, we might actually be bad.
Right.
So yeah, that was fun looking, turning on my
I'm
phone.
sorry. I have to say it wasn't that bad for us, but I
Right.
understand,
Right.
how that could be
The
a
best-
buzzkill on a honeymoon.
Alex, let's be real. The best games to go to is when your team just blows them out of the water,
And
and
you're on
the
the-
thought
yeah.
of losing is not even in your head at
Oh,
any
yeah.
point.
We don't know what that
Right.
is, Spartan Mike.
That's true.
Colts this year. That was the first time we felt that.
Yeah,
in,
that was the only
in
time
7
ever.
years, man.
So
Great.
okay, so yeah.
So listen, we got some guys coming out from Southern California for that game here in New York. How big is the group? Listen, I'm not going to sit here and flub numbers here. It's a small group that likes to go out and just, hang out and watch some games. We've tried going to a couple of games. I think, the Rams played in, was it Baltimore? He played the Ravens. I went to one of those games. I didn't go to the other one, but if they're in the Northeast, we try to do a little road trip.
Sure.
But it's fun. So if you're watching and you're in New York and you want to catch a game,
I'll tell you this: they played the Giants 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
At home, and they killed them as well that game. That was their 10-year anniversary of Super Bowl 46, and there was a lot of Rams fans than I expected of other teams, because like when you're tailgating and walking to other tailgates or whatever, just walking in the parking lot, you're like, you take notice of the other fans because usually they're so few and far between. And I'll tell you, there was a decent amount there was more Rams fans than I actually ever thought it was possible.
The knock on the Rams on fans anyway is that we do travel well. The team is still doing its best to get a lot of traction in LA, because when a team's not in town for 20-25 years, whatever it was,
right,
you lose a fan base, right?
Right.
And so and the knock on LA is, of course, that's also a destination to go watch your team play. So I've gone to like 5 or 6 Rams games at home in LA since they've moved out there. I have a thing, we go a couple times a year, and everyone, you get there, they're like, oh yeah, we made a vacation out of it. We went to Disney, and then we watched the Rams play whatever team they were playing. So
that's really cool. So all right, so since you brought up going to LA, you mentioned before that you actually went to the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. How was it seeing your team win a Super Bowl? Obviously, doesn't matter what stadium they are in. If your team wins the Super Bowl, you're going to be ecstatic. But how cool / weird was it that it was at home? Because obviously, up until the Buccaneers, there was no team ever winning a Super Bowl at home. Like,
it was stressful.
Right.
There came it was a blast, a lot of fun, rolled in deep with like 10 guys. We had a great time. And then at about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you're like, oh man.
And it was a classic game. Joe Burrow.
This is going to be a bummer if they lose,
Right.
But it was fantastic. We parked. It was a great start. We somehow got VIP parking. I don't know. Like, the car next to us pulls up. It's like Jackie Slater, right? This guy, and all these former NFL guys started getting out of their cars. I got a bunch of selfies with these guys. We had a good time. And then the game itself was exciting, but I'm not going to lie. It's a little more stressful than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, because it would really suck if they lost, right? And I don't even want to get into the numbers, but that adds to like why the F did I just do this?
Right. I could have just watched this at home and saved a couple G's.
Yeah,
Right.
see, that's the heartbreaking thing, because you're literally dropping grands to just be at the game, and then add a 8 hour flight to LA on top of it. Like, see, like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if I could physically, emotionally go to a Super Bowl game. I obviously I would love to go to one, but if the Giants are in it, I don't think I can mentally or physically handle the stress of that, dropping all that money, and that's like a years worth of like just being able to do anything free.
I cashed in all my credits.
I would assume.
My wife was like, "That's the last game you're going to for about 5 years." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah,
all the birthday bonds were cashed in for
That's
that.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. All of them.
Alex, you witnessed a Super Bowl victory for your team. What was work like the next week? Like, did you go in and just every day felt like Friday for the next month?
You're walking on air. I mean, suddenly, people. This is the wild thing. People who knew you were a Rams fan just start texting you. Your phone starts blowing up. You're like a mini celebrity. My wife was at a big Super Bowl party, and all of those people started texting me and blowing up. I got back to the city, and it was great. It was wonderful.
Good for you. That's awesome.
And you feel pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
All right, Peyton. So you're gonna run the ball on the 1 yard line when you win play in the Super Bowl the next time?
Gosh, I was actually at Craig's house watching that game, and the ride home was brutal. It was not because it was young me. I think I probably cared even more a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You go to school and all your friends are like, your team lost the Super Bowl, so it was rough. But I mean,
did you cry? Because I'm not gonna lie, I cried after Miracle at the Meadowlands.
I think I did. I mean, I think I did probably. I mean, younger me was probably very upset about that. But if we didn't get the one the year before,
right,
then it would have been.
It's true.
It would have been completely worse. But I mean, to go to back and
see, like that's the funniest thing about this. Sorry for interrupting. You had the two extremes of the Super Bowl. You had the Super Bowl that was a complete blowout, and you're like, all right, we got this game won after the first play of the game.
Yeah.
And then you lost on the last play of the game. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the first play of the game, I watched a snap go over Peyton Manning's head into safety, and I was like, maybe there's a shot here. Because, I mean, that Seahawks team was one of the best teams in the past, I don't know, in a long time. But that
was probably one of the best teams of the century, right? I mean, top 10, no doubt.
But when you're playing Peyton Manning, it's there's always that thought in the back of your head, like this could be a game where he just is Peyton Manning.
And, yeah, and again, there's a game where stress-free game, and it's a Super Bowl, right? And you guys beat the crap out of him, which is awesome. The only stressor about the next Super Bowl is like you kind of wonder if the Seahawks could have been a dynasty.
Yeah, and I think we were the better team that year when we didn't run the ball. I think that we were a better all-around team, and it comes down to that where I think
it was mind-blowing.
Yeah, I hate saying it because I love Pete Carroll, but I think partly they wanted Russ to be the hero because the defense got so much credit that they wanted Russ to kind of have that shining moment of the game-winning touchdown pass. But you can't worry about the storybook ending when you're one play away from a Super Bowl win.
Right.
That's right.
All right, Peyton, thank you for coming on. Alex, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you guys, and what can Peyton, what's in store for you since school's over? What do you do? Any podcasts or anything like that? Tell us what you do.
So not football. So when I went to school, there was a bunch of shows already put together, but there was no NHL show. So I have an NHL podcast with a couple of my friends called Thin Ice. So on Twitter, that's just @official Thin Ice, and we tweet a bunch and do a lot of coverage there. And then my personal Twitter is just my name, and I do some tweeting on sports. But yeah, other than that, the next couple of years of school will be much more in depth in terms of building my resume and being involved.
All right, no, we'll definitely keep a lookout. Obviously, Craig's going to keep us in the loop, so we definitely appreciate it. Alex, thank you for coming on. I shot a DM at you at a limb and like, all right, there's the New York Football Club from the guys, so we're like, all right, let's see. And you're like, I'll definitely come on. I'm like, all right, great. You're gonna have a blast. Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it.
You're giving shout outs to helmets and everything. I just wanted to
do it up. Is that a Columbia helmet?
That's a Columbia helmet.
Nice.
Alex, did you play there?
I did not.
Oh, okay, all right.
But I know plenty of the guys, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for showing up this week. Nikki will be back next week. Take care, guys. Have a good week.
All right.
Take care,
Thanks
guys.
for having us.